Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fifth session of the Inclusion BC's virtual learning series. You can vote with Melanie Callas from Elections BC. This session really builds off the You Can Vote participation guide, which you can find on the Inclusion BC website, but we'll also be posting it in the chat function later on in the session. My name is Carla Verscher, and I'll be your host today. I'm joining you from my home office on the unceded traditional lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'd like to acknowledge these lands, but as well as the traditional lands that each of you are joining from today. Before we get started, just a little bit about the session. It'll be 45 minutes. We'll have a 30-minute presentation style, and then the last 15 minutes will really be a question and answer. So during the presentation, your videos will be off and muted, but during the question and answer period, you'll have the option of putting a question in the chat or just raising your hand and verbally asking the question. Just a note to everybody, but this session is being recorded, and a recording of this session will be on the Inclusion BC website, probably later today. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Melanie to introduce herself and talk a bit more about this session. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining me today on a Wednesday afternoon. And as you probably know, we have a provincial general election coming up. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. So a bit about myself. I am the outreach coordinator at Elections BC. I've been here for about 4 years. So this will be my second provincial general election. So I have a PowerPoint that I will go through today. And then as Carla said, there'll be time for questions afterwards. So next slide, please. So Elections BC is an independent office of the legislature. And what the legislature is, it's the group that makes provincial laws in British Columbia. So we are an impartial or nonpartisan organization, and that means we treat all voters, candidates, political parties, and other stakeholders or groups fairly and equally. Next slide. So what we do, well, we're known for administering provincial general elections like the one that we're about to have here. We do other things as well, though. For example, we administer on-demand events, which are unscheduled events. So that includes, for example, by-elections and referenda. We had a referendum in 2018 about our voting system. Elections BC is also responsible for administering campaign financing and advertising rules for local elections. Next slide. But today I will focus on provincial general elections since that's the hot topic right now. So what is a provincial general election? It's an election to choose our representatives in the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. The Legislative Assembly is the lawmaking body of BC, and it includes the members of the Legislative Assembly, or MLAs, which is what we call them for short. So one candidate is elected from each electoral district. So in this, the 2020 provincial general election, there are 87 electoral districts or voting areas. So 87 representatives will be elected. Our elected representatives are called members of the Legislative Assembly, or MLAs, and they meet in the legislature, which is pictured on the slide here. The legislature is also called the Parliament Buildings, and they are located in Victoria, which is also where I am located. So I'm in Victoria right now, working from my home office. Next slide. So MLAs represent the people in their district by asking questions and raising issues that concern them. They provide people with advice and assistance. They meet in the legislative chamber to debate and pass laws that govern British Columbia. And on the slide, there's a photo of the legislative chamber, which is inside the legislature or the parliament buildings. Next slide. So who is eligible to vote? We have an inclusive voting process in BC. The only requirements to vote are you have to be a Canadian citizen, 18 years or old on general voting day, 18 years or older on general voting day, and a resident of BC for the past 6 months. As long as a person meets these criteria, then they're eligible to vote. Next slide. So now I'll talk a little bit about voter registration. So voter registration for the provincial election is actually now closed online and by phone. But if you need to register or update your registration, you can do that when you vote in person or vote by mail. If you vote by mail and you are not registered to vote or your voter information is out of date, for example, maybe you moved recently and you have a new address, your vote by mail package will include instructions on how to register or update your information. You will need to provide photocopies of identification in your vote by mail package. So that is only if your registration is not up to date or you are not registered to vote. Next slide. So now I'll talk a bit about identification for voting. So voters need to prove their identity and residential address before they vote. There are several options to do this. Option 1, a voter can use a government-issued document that shows their name, address, and photograph. So this might include a driver's license, BC identification card, or a BC services card if it has their photo on it. Option 2, a voter can use a certificate of Indian status issued by the Government of Canada. Next slide. We also have option 3. You can show 2 pieces of ID or documents that show your name, and at least one must have your residential address as well. So for example, you could use your Where to Vote card, which you may have received in the mail. You can use a health card, birth certificate, a utility bill such as your phone bill or hydro bill, and it can actually be a paper bill or an electronic bill on your phone. You could use a bank card, hospital document, prescription bottle. There's lots of options, and there's more details on that on our website, or you could call Elections BC for more information. We also have a 4th option to prove your identity, and that's our vouching process. So if you are not able to prove your identity using one of the other 3 options I mentioned, a friend or family member or someone who's registered in your electoral district could make a declaration. I believe it's an oral declaration now. And that's just when you make a statement to say, yes, I know this person and I know that they live at the address that they are telling you. And then you can vote that way. If you want more information about the vouching process, you may want to contact Elections BC for more details on that, or there is more information about it on our website as well. Next slide. So one of the things that's definitely different about voting in this provincial election is, of course, there is the COVID-19 pandemic right now. So that has certainly changed some things with our voting process this year. But Elections BC is committed to a safe and accessible election for all voters, and we have services available to help whether you're voting in person or remotely, which means you might be voting by mail or voting by telephone, for example. Election officials are trained on how to help all voters vote safely, and Elections BC has been working with the Office of the Provincial Health Officer to make sure the election is conducted safely for all voters, candidates, and election officials. Voting places will follow the practices outlined in our Voting Place Safety Plan, which includes input provided by WorkSafe BC. And we really want to make sure that all voters don't have to choose between protecting their health and exercising their right to vote. Next slide. So safety at voting places. Here's an idea of what you can expect if you vote in person at a voting place or at a district electoral office. All voting places and district electoral offices will have protective measures in place. This includes physical distancing, so that's where you'll see signs saying stay 6 feet or 2 meters apart. Capacity limits, so that means there will be a limit on how many people are allowed in the voting place at one time. Election officials will be wearing personal protective equipment, so that includes things like masks and face visors. There will be protective barriers at voting places. For example, there will be a plexiglass screen between the election officials and the voter. There will be hand sanitizing stations. Election officials will be cleaning voting stations and frequently touch surfaces like doorknobs. Election workers are trained on safe workplace guidelines and pandemic protocols. And some familiar voting procedures, which you're used to seeing in the past, may look a little bit different. So for example, you will show your identification without handing it to an election official. You will keep it with you. And you will make a verbal declaration or a verbal statement of your eligibility to vote instead of signing the voting book. So usually you sign the voting book to make the declaration that you have not voted yet and you are eligible to vote. We made a change this year. It is now a verbal or oral declaration. So you will just say, yes, you agree, and that way you won't have to hold a pen or pencil or write. So it's just less contact points due to the pandemic protocols that we have in place. So please follow the instructions from election officials and signs in the voting place that will help you maintain physical distance from other people there. You will be asked to sanitize your hands before and after voting. You may bring your own pen or pencil to use to mark your ballot if you wish. That is your choice. There will be pencils available there as well. So each voter will get their own pencil instead of sharing a pencil like at past elections. You are welcome to wear a face mask if you wish. That is optional for voters. You will not be asked to remove your mask to vote. If you're sick or self-isolating, please do not visit a voting place. We recommend that if you are sick or self-isolating, that you request a vote by mail package or call Elections BC and we can help you. Next slide. So the voting opportunities that we'll have this year are the same as the last election. So we administer voting for provincial elections in several different ways. So you can vote in a district electoral office and click next slide and a line should appear. There it is. You can also vote by mail. You can vote using special voting, and that means where we send mobile teams to administer voting to places where people cannot go to a voting place. So that includes, for example, hospitals and care facilities. You can also vote at advance voting, which actually starts tomorrow, or you can vote at a voting place on general voting day. Okay, next slide. So I'll talk a bit more about these different voting opportunities. So voting in person, which I talked a little bit about what that will look like. So this is when and where you can vote in person. You can vote in person during advance voting, which is tomorrow, Thursday, October 15th, until Wednesday, October 21st, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time. So this year we have 7 days of advance voting. And you can vote on general voting day, which is Saturday, October 24th. And you can vote 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. You can also vote at the district electoral office from now until 4 p.m. on Saturday, October 24th. So there's at least one district electoral office in each electoral district, which is a voting area. So there's 87 electoral districts or voting areas in the province. And so each district has a district electoral office. You can find the location and the address of your district electoral office by calling Elections BC or visiting our website. We have the locations listed there. If you want to vote at the district electoral office, their hours are Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. They'll actually be open longer hours for advance voting, which starts tomorrow. During the 7 days of advance voting, they will actually be open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And next slide, I'll talk a bit about vote by mail. So all voters are allowed to vote by mail. They do not need a special reason to vote by mail. So contact Elections BC to request a vote by mail package as soon as possible. You can request it online through our website, or you can call Elections BC. I'll show you our contact information, including our phone number, at the end of the presentation, because I keep referring to it, but I haven't showed you the number yet. So if you're requesting a package on or before October 17th, which is coming up in a few days actually, you can request the vote by mail package online at this address, which I'll show you again at the end of my presentation. That's a website. You can call Elections BC, or you can request your vote by mail package at any district electoral office. If you're requesting a vote by mail package after October 17th, then you will have to do this through your district electoral office. You will not be able to request a package online or by calling Elections BC after October 17th. Next slide. So how to complete your vote by mail package. So to complete your package, please follow the instructions that will be included in your vote by mail package, or you can read or download the instructions on the Elections BC website. If you need any help at all, please call Elections BC and we can help you complete your package. So how to return your package. You have a few options when you return your vote by mail package. You may return your package by mail by October 17th. So we recommend that you return your package. If you're returning your package by mail, we recommend you do so by October 17th so that it has enough time to arrive at Elections BC by the deadline, which is October 24th. So you may return your package by mail by October 17th, and a postage paid return envelope is provided for voters in Canada. If a voter is mailing the package from outside of Canada, they will have to provide the postage stamp. You can also return your vote by mail package in person until and including October 24th. If you're returning your vote by mail package in person, you can do that at a district electoral office. You can return it to a voting place on advance voting days or general voting days. You can also return it to participating Service BC locations. So you can visit our website to check out our Where to Vote app, which lists our district electoral office locations and voting places. On our website, we also have a list of the Service BC locations that are accepting the vote by mail packages. And most Service B locations are participating, but there are some that are not. So vote by mail packages cannot be dropped off at Service BC locations in Surrey, Vancouver, Burnaby, or Masset. And voters in these areas who want to return their package in person should return it to a district electoral office or a voting place. And so completed vote by mail packages must be received by Elections BC before 8 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday, October 24th. So that date is also the day of general voting. Voters are encouraged to return their vote by mail package as soon as possible to make sure we receive it by the deadline. And again, if you have any questions about vote by mail packages, please give us a call. And next slide, I'll talk a bit about write-in ballots. So voters will receive a write-in ballot or an ordinary ballot in their package. The type of ballot they receive depends on when they requested the package. If you requested a vote by mail package before candidate nominations closed, your package will include a write-in ballot. So candidate nominations closed on October 2nd. So if you requested a package before then, we did not know who the candidates would be in your electoral district. So we could not list them on the ballot. So that's why you would get a write-in ballot if you requested the package before October 2nd. If you requested the package recently, you will most likely receive an ordinary ballot, and that's the ballot that has the candidates' names, and you put an X or a check mark beside the name you would choose. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the write-in ballot in case you receive one and you might not have been expecting it. So to mark your write-in ballot, you must write the name of the party or candidate of your choice clearly in the space provided. Spelling mistakes are not grounds for rejecting a write-in ballot, as long as the intention of the voter is clear. So as long as the election official who's counting the ballot knows who you are intending to vote for, that's all that matters. If you make a spelling mistake, but the election official can still tell who you're voting for, your ballot will still count. Make sure you write the name of a party or candidate running in your electoral district. So if you write the name of a party or a candidate or a party leader who is not a candidate in your district, then your vote will not count. Your electoral district is shown on the certification envelope that will be included in your vote by mail package. And you can find a list of candidates in your electoral district on our website, or you can call us and we can tell you. Next slide, I have a picture of what the write-in ballot looks like. So the information at the top of the ballot summarizes what I was just telling you. It's telling you how to mark your write-in ballot. So it's saying please print the name of the candidate or political party of your choice clearly in the white box below. Do not write anything else on this ballot. You must print the name of a candidate or party running in your electoral district. Your electoral district is listed on your certification envelope. So that's a small envelope you will receive in your vote by mail package. And it says how to find the candidates for your electoral district. Because you requested your vote by mail package before candidate nominations closed, a list of candidates is not included in this package. Visit the Elections BC website for the current candidates for your district or call Elections BC. And then at the bottom of the write-in ballot, you will see a box with a black border. And inside the box, it says, I vote for. And then there's a blank space, and that is where you will write the name of the candidate or party in your electoral district that you are voting for. And next slide, I'll talk a bit about assisted telephone voting. So telephone voting is available for a limited set of voters who are unable to vote independently by other means. So to vote by assisted telephone voting, your voter registration information must be up to date, and you must meet one of the following criteria. You have vision loss, you have a disability or underlying health condition that prevents you from voting independently, you are self-isolating during the last week of the election period. Perhaps you have COVID-19 or symptoms of COVID-19. And this means you're unable to vote by mail or vote in person. District electoral officers may also make this option available at some residents of care facilities, patients of acute care hospitals, or deployed members of the military. Only voters who meet one of these criteria are allowed to vote by phone, and voters must confirm that they are eligible. So if an ineligible or someone who is not eligible if an ineligible voter attempts to vote by phone, it could tie up the phone lines and just mean it will take longer for someone who is eligible to get through to place their vote. Telephone operators will assist voters who vote by phone, and measures have been put in place to ensure the secrecy of the ballot for voters voting by telephone. If you have questions about if you're eligible to vote using assisted telephone voting, you can contact Elections BC and we can help you. Telephone voting was actually used for the first time in BC's electoral history during our last provincial election in 2017. And during that election, just over 1,000 voters voted by telephone. And, oops. Next slide. Thanks. So here's some services for voters with vision loss. Voters can ask for assistance from an election official or another individual in marking their ballot. I should say that that does not apply only to voters with vision loss because any voter can actually ask for assistance from an election official or another individual in marking their ballot. Our election officials are trained to help voters with accessibility challenges. And we have resources at voting places for individuals with vision loss. That includes a Braille candidate list, plastic ballot template with Braille text, and large print ballot posters, so then it's easier to read the names of the candidates. Next slide is a bit about physical accessibility. So we want to ensure voting is physically accessible. So all advanced voting places are wheelchair accessible, and most general voting places are wheelchair accessible. Accessible locations are indicated on where to vote cards with a wheelchair symbol. So again, the where to vote card is the card that comes in the mail if you're registered to vote. You can also find accessible locations by visiting Elections BC's website through our Where to Vote application. And we can also assist voters who cannot enter a voting place. So voters can identify themselves to an election official at a voting place, and the election official will bring the ballot box to the voter, such as in the parking lot or at the curb. And something else I wanted to mention about assistance marking a ballot. If you are voting by mail and you would like assistance marking your ballot, you can get a friend or a family member or someone else to help you check the box or make an X on the ordinary ballot, or if it's a write-in ballot, they can help you write the name of the candidate or political party that you would like. And then in the vote by mail package, on the certification envelope, that's where you enter your name and birth date. There's actually a box there for someone who's offering assistance. So there's instructions there for them if they're offering assistance, and then there's a declaration, and then they sign their name to say that they have read the declaration, to basically say that they are marking the ballot based on the wishes of the voter. And if a voter is getting assistance at the voting place, they can also have a friend or a family member or someone else help them mark the ballot. And that person will make an oral declaration saying the same thing, that yes, I'm marking the ballot based on the voter's wishes. And then the assistant can help the voter through the whole voting process, so they can go behind the voting screen and mark the ballot for the person. Or if you don't have a friend or family member to help, the election official can help you mark your ballot if you ask. And I think my last slide here is some contact information. So if you have any questions for us, please call. We have a contact center open right now. And our phone number is a 1-800 number. It's 1-800-661-8683. We also have an email address, so you can ask us questions by email. Our email is elections@elections.bc.ca. I've also included the website that you can visit to request a vote by mail package. So that is votebymail.elections.bc.ca. You can also find a link to that through our website, which I didn't put here, but it's elections.bc.ca. So that is my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, thank you so much, Melanie. That was fantastic. I'm just waiting for my video to start up here. You can hear me though, correct? I just can't seem to get my video working. So thank you. We were able to get some questions in advance, but I believe we have a few in the chat function as well. Can you see that on your screen, or would it be helpful if I read through them for you?
I see the chat now, so okay. Let me just take a peek here.
Daniel McDonald is the first one I see. There I am.
There you are. Okay, yes, so thank you, Daniel. So Elections BC has list of all candidates on their website, but it does not list the email addresses of the candidates. My view, EBC should make every effort to ensure electors can get as much info as possible. Yes, so to my knowledge, we may not collect contact information, um, unfortunately, so you may have to search for that yourself. So for example, you could take the candidate's name and search on the internet or search for their political party for more information. So sorry if we don't have that information readily available. We are a bit separate from the candidates in that we share information about their names and we put them on the ballots, um, but we have to make sure that we're nonpartisan or impartial, so we aren't able to share information such as candidates' political views or the issues they support.
Okay. People can also just unmute and ask a question if they would like as well. No. Another question that we received, and everyone could just jump in when we hear your voice, we'll be prompted, but how much training do polling station staff get about supporting people's rights to have support at the polling station, Melanie? It's a question we received on social media over the weekend.
Oh, great. Yeah, so all election officials are trained in the resources and processes that we offer for voters who would like assistance and voters with disabilities. So that is a part of the training that all election officials get. And also election officials are trained in how to assist voters in marking their ballot if they request that.
Oh, awesome. Are there any questions from any of the participants on the session? You can use the chat function or you can just unmute and verbally ask.
There's a few questions in the Q&A
Oh.
around, do people have to pre-register for the vote by phone service, and what kind of disability would be considered to be able to vote by phone?
Okay. Yes, so let me just pull up my slides. So the assisted telephone voting. So you have to already be registered to vote. We are not able to register voters at the same time as telephone voting, unfortunately. So one qualification is the voter has to be registered and up to date. If you're not sure, you could call Elections BC ahead of time to ask. And then besides that, you must meet one of these criteria. So you would have vision loss, you have a disability or health condition that prevents you from voting independently or going to a voting place to vote, or you are self-isolating during the last week of the election, so next week, and you are not able to request a vote by mail package. So if you call for assisted telephone voting, you don't have to let us know ahead of time. You can just call to place your vote, and the election official on the phone will ask you something like, do you meet the qualifications? And they might read out something similar to I have just read. They might list the qualifications, and then you would just say yes. You don't have to prove that you qualify. They will not ask like detailed questions beyond that. So they'll just ask for you to make an oral declaration, which means that you're saying, yes, it is true that I meet the qualifications. And you can call to vote by phone actually anytime now, and you just call during our contact center hours. So the contact center hours are Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 9 to 4, and then on general voting day, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. So you can call during the day anytime now if you want to vote by phone.
He was asking about spelling on a ballot and someone who might have trouble spelling their candidate or knowing who is running in their riding.
Oh yes, good question. So if you requested your vote by mail package early and you get a write-in ballot, you would need to find out who the candidates are in your electoral district. So the candidates are listed on the Elections BC website, or you can call Elections BC to ask. So you would tell them, probably they would ask for your address so they can figure out what electoral district you are in. And then once they know your electoral district, then they would tell you the candidates in your electoral district. And for spelling, so it's okay if there are spelling mistakes when you write the candidate's name or the party name. The main thing is that the election official who will be counting the votes needs to know your intention. So my last name, Callas, let's say you spelled it Calas and you left out one of the L's, that's okay because it would be obvious who you were trying to vote for. So small spelling mistakes are fine. If you're worried about spelling or writing the name on the ballot clearly, you're welcome to get a friend or a family member or anybody to help you mark your ballot as well. And more information about that will be in the voting package in the place where you would sign your name. So it'll explain that the assistant will sign their name so we know who is helping you.
Excellent. I think we have time for one more question. Erica, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Melanie, for the presentation. And we receive a question as well, people asking, for those who is their first time voting, where to start, and they wanted to know if there is going to be a person at the polling station to guide them through this process. Who should they look for?
Okay, yes, voting for the first time can be a bit scary for sure. And so if someone is a first-time voter and they go to the voting place, you can tell any election official there that it's your first time and you might need help. So the first person you see at the voting place is usually the information officer, and that is the person that helps you by directing you to which voting station or ballot box you're going to go to. So you could let them know, I may need some extra help or I might have questions, and they'll help you right away. And then once you make it into your lineup to get to the ballot box, you'll see the voting officer. If you have more questions, then you can also ask them for help. And if they want help marking their ballot, the voting officer would be happy to help with that as well.
Excellent. Well, I do want to end on time. As we said, it was a 45-minute session. Deep gratitude to you, Melanie, for taking the time and chatting with us today, as well as all of those who have attended. Our next session will be held on November 14th, and we'll be featuring Sarah Jama who will be talking about coalition building and grassroots organization. So we do look forward to that session and hope you come back out and join us in November. Again, thank you very much to Melanie and Elections BC, and have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.